We are live, and this is Pat Roque, career and leadership strategist. My mission is to help people love their jobs and their jobs to love them back, which is so much fun and so awesome. And I'm more excited because I'm here with Beate Chelette, the growth architect, who helped me bless the world with that statement. So I'm forever grateful to you, Beate, because you are a window of wisdom and all things taking the big ideas and pulling them in together. So please say hi. We're on LinkedIn Live and Facebook Live and YouTube Live. So please say hello to our friends in the audience.
Hello, everyone. My name is Beate Chelette. I'm known as the growth architect, and I'm the one who designs best practices, systems, strategies, and processes to help leaders make a bigger and better impact by making sure they're organized, got blueprints, tools, techniques, and a growth plan to actually move forward with that. And on that note is, just a little backstory on that is I didn't really come up with that. I just heard Pat say it. And then when she did say it, I said, that's it, and that's my gift, is to really help people like Pat who are in that mindset, or in business, or in an organization, or in a team, or here with a mission, to really hear on how we can magnify her message to the world. And I think today we're talking about that very message.
We are actually totally talking about it. And I'm so excited because we've got fans on the line already. This is really fun. So one of the people on the line right now is my dear friend, Sarah Nunez. And I'm going to tell you, she's one of my angels. She is the person who literally blessed me with Strength Finders. Going back 6 years ago when I first wrote my first book, and I was putting all my life together and figuring out how do I serve others. And I put a little note on LinkedIn that said, what's the best tool you ever used to change your life and others? And I left it at that. It was very open-ended, very vague intentionally. And Sarah reached out and spoke to me within 2 hours of me posting that note. And the next morning, I was working at a Chamber of Commerce event, and she came and saw me, and we sat on a bench in the back of the room, and we had one of those magic pixie dust moments where we helped all these people. Everybody came up and we had the answer to whatever they needed right there on the spot. And she and I bonded and became good friends. And she's the one who actually did my first Strength Finders assessment of me and made me realize, ready? You're not supposed to be great at everything. Your collective team should be. And it was so forgiving at that point. I really needed to hear that. You ever notice how people show up in your life when you need them? And Sarah, God bless you. You are absolutely one of those people in my world. And I was just talking about you yesterday. So I'm glad you're here now. Thank you. What do you think about that, Beate?
I actually think that's really interesting that you said that. I just did my accountability group just met, and we actually talked about this. And I said that a great leader is determined by his ability to find the strongest people on the team and put them into places where they can shine. But that if I were to say to the people on the call in the accountability mastermind, and I would say, I have somebody who I have a writer on my team, I have a video editor on my team, I have a virtual assistant on my team, nobody would look at me and say she sucks because she doesn't know how to do everything. People would look at me and say that's actually a really smart choice. So I find that it's interesting that you mentioned this, because it seems to be a little bit of the theme, and I think ties very well into what we're talking about here today too, on team building and retention and engagement in the workplace, is that the objective really isn't that you are a demigod who is practically perfect at everything, but your ability to be that great leader stems from recognizing the genius, the zone of genius, how you call it, Pat, right, in other people, and put them where they belong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's that zone of genius, rediscovering your zone of genius. Why is that important? Because I call it rocking your strength, right? The Rock on Success system meets Strength Finders, meets positive intelligence, and all of the other tools and concepts. But I've had a very fun ride and an interesting journey paying attention to the things that seem to connect, connecting all the dots and the right people and bringing them together. And we always start with, what are the 5 cornerstones of the blueprint? What are the things we need? And strength. Oh, Sarah, I love you. Look, powerful team and collaboration. And she loves what you said. Beate, you two should meet. She's awesome. Clarity. What is your GPS? What's your goal for you, for an individual, for your team, for your organization? Clarity, focus on the things that matter. So I do career soul searching when it's for an individual, but there's a lot of ways to set the stage for success when it comes to a team. So clarity is 1. 2 is confidence. How do we learn to unapologetically be our authentic self, speak our truth, or seek out the truth, even if we might not really be ready to hear some of the things that need to be said? We need to be open to receiving input and to bettering ourselves and learning how to be braver and to speak our truth and to stand up for the things that matter, or maybe for the people who aren't able to, right? So that's 2. The 3rd is about communicating, right? And we talked about that, Beate. It's not just communicating with clarity, but how about not over communicating? Verbal vomit, as I
call
right?
the knowledge vomit, where you want to demonstrate your subject matter expertise, and then this poor person just gets this like whole big gush of everything right on them. So yes, now communication, and I think Pat, you talked about this in a different session, and maybe this would be helpful for our listeners to listen to a little bit. Is over communicating and communicating. How do I know that I'm finding the right cadence here?
Cadence. I love that word, cadence.
Well, it starts with a C. You like all words with a C. Confidence,
I do.
clarity,
Alliteration is a
communication.
beautiful thing. It is. But I really do like the word cadence because that's the marching band in line in synchronicity. It's allowing people to be doing their own thing, but to know when it's the right moment to come together. And so you know this, but I don't know if the audience knows this. I did my master's thesis on best practices for virtual teams in spring 2001. Months before 9/11. And I'm from the New York metro area. So we watched the towers fall. I was in a job. Did I ever tell you this story? I was in a job interview. I was in my 8th interview. I was supposed to be the head of marketing for a healthcare system and start the following Tuesday. It was my last interview. And I walked in and the first tower had gotten hit. And while I was in the interview, the towers fell. So I'm in this executive boardroom with the chairman of the board, and the secretary comes running in, screaming on the top of her lungs. The towers fell, freaking out. And the world changed, and my life changed, and the job went away. So even back then, chaos and disruption and figuring out now what the heck am I supposed to do is all part of it. But working with virtual teams through that, when people didn't have a building, they didn't have a bus route, there were no roads, like everything was destroyed. How do you communicate? How do you know when to communicate? How do you not over communicate? And especially, we talk about this a lot. You work with global teams, and so do I. What happens when somebody's got a team, East Coast, West Coast? You're in West Coast, Pacific time. I'm East Coast Eastern. That's 3 hours. And we've got friends, our crisis management partner, Alexandra, is in Bordeaux, Paris. She's 5 hours ahead of me. And we've got folks on the other side of the pond and around the world. So how do you create a cadence for when are those good times to communicate? Because you can't be online and on 24/7. It's exhausting.
Yes, I like that a lot. I believe, and I see this being a mistake that's being made all the time, or just something that's overseen, that this rush to the instantaneous aspect of working together is oftentimes an absolute disaster. So we create these habits of, when email first came out, and frankly, that was quite some time ago, but I remember we were so excited when there was an email that came in that we rushed and answered it immediately because it was so new and exciting. And now you don't even want to go there because every time you look, there's like 200 of them in there that are unanswered. So I think there is, in addition to the cadence, there's also a discipline that we need to to really identify the priority or the importance of the tasks that are ahead of us. And in well-being at work, which is what we're talking about today, that overload of having these things come at you 24/7. And it's not just work, and it's not just work around the globe or different offices, but it's your kids that are playing behind you. It's your partner, your husband, your wife, your mother, and everybody's freaking out. And the mental stress is just so intense right now. The fear around COVID, that we have to really pay attention to where we allow our energy to go.
Absolutely. Energy or attention. And confession, had a very exciting couple of days, very exciting morning. There are so many good things happening at the same time. It's a little bit mind-bending, which is fabulous because we've put things out to the universe, right, Beate? We've been working hard and working smart.
Momentum.
People are reaching out. So I'm participating in the Women at Work conference for McKinsey and the Wall Street Journal. I'll be a guest of the SVP of the Wall Street Journal. That's on the 27th. I just got asked to speak for the Rochester Regional Business Festival for about 1,000 people the next morning on the 28th. On the 29th, I'm hosting a roundtable for a 90-minute leap, basically what we heard at the Women at Work and what are we going to do about it concept. There's just great momentum, one after the next. And I took a 30-minute break and I put my head on the pillow and I shut my eyes and literally just gave myself a little moment to decompress because I wanted to recharge the battery, just like on your cell phone, your laptop, and every other thing. It is important to stop and to breathe and to take time and to notice when you're feeling. Now, this was stress and a good stress. It wasn't negativity, but it was still sensory overload. Important to be aware of what your body is telling you. Right? Feed it, water it like a plant. Feed it, water it, nurture it. Give yourself some sunlight. Give yourself some quiet time if you need it, because all of those things matter. And so when it comes to well-being at work, it's about making sure that we have the only way to have your A game on at life is to have your A game on at work and vice versa. And to, as the flight attendants say, because I flew for the first time in a year and a half, about 2 weeks ago. I know. It was weird.
You almost didn't make it because there was no
They
crew.
canceled the flight. Yes. That was not a good moment. They canceled 3 different flights for myself, my daughter, and another friend within 3 days. And it was 3 different airlines. So there's chaos happening there. So you've got to really plan for extenuating circumstances, stay virtual where you can. But when she said, put them oxygen on yourself first, the flight attendant, right? Remember, you've heard that so many times you stop listening. I perked up and I thought, yes, that is right. That is exactly what we need to do. And that's the premise of the well-being at work and everything. And I'm going to pause for half a second because we have Nina was your friend. We can't see the name, but I just checked. It was Nina who said hi to you, by the way.
Oh, hi, Nina.
Watching.
I know. Yes, of course. From Women in Technology Hollywood. Big shout out.
Oh, I love the women. Oh, that's our Nina. Wait, okay.
That's our Nina. Yes.
There you go. And James is on it. He just said, are there ways to communicate being a disabled person in a better way? Absolutely. I'll let you take that. I'm going to take a sip of water. You go for it.
Yeah. I mean, we just call it a different ability. And that takes the focus on, you demonstrating in your unapologetic value proposition what your different ability is. So I learned this when I was giving when I was on a roadshow for advertising agency Tracy Locke, and the CEO at the time had learned about a young woman, who was early in her teenage years, who had a different ability. And so she had difficulties communicating, but she was fantastic in illustrating. And so through this program, he said what really resonated with him is that when he looked at her abilities, and his mind shifted away from what she couldn't do to putting the focus on her ability, her different ability, that really changed everything. So I hope this helps you.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's also not being hesitant to speak your truth and to let the people know what you need. Because we're both big advocates for diversity and inclusion and belonging. Belonging is not just tolerating and saying, okay, every skin color is welcomed. Ladies, you can come, but just be quiet and sit in the corner, right? That's not inclusion. That is condescending. So what can we do to encourage belonging? And I've been a huge proponent of also making sure that folks who have different challenges or different gifts or different abilities speak up, because if I don't know that you perhaps have an auditory issue, a hearing challenge, my daughter is a doctor of audiology. I wouldn't say deaf. That's not polite anymore. That's not politically correct. I'm not meaning to be disrespectful, but right. So we know that it's auditory challenge, but I might not know that. So if you need help in a certain area, please let someone know so that we are always sure to make sure we address it. When you go to big events these days or even online, people will ask, is there any special need that we should be aware of? And please go ahead and do that. What happens if you do, but what happens if they don't listen, for someone who's perhaps visually impaired? Well, we can't control the weather. Unfortunately,
you could punch him in the nose, but I don't think that's a really a good way. And I'm going to jump in on that because I do hear this a lot. Is you only can speak clearly for yourself, and make sure that the intention in how you show up and the clarity in which you present it is so that other people can receive it. If other people don't receive it, they either are not ready to hear it or you haven't made it clear enough. And this is something that I'm a really huge advocate on. I did a lot of research and I wrote an insights paper about it called The Future of Leadership. So if anybody wants to read it, you just go to diversify.world to download it. And in that, it is really clear that everybody I spoke to said, it is not on me to ask you, it is on you to tell me. Every CEO, every CHRO, every C-level executive I've spoken to said the same thing. Please tell the people that they need to learn on how to articulate it in such a way that it's clear and I can perceive it. So you just keep practicing until you get it right, until people actually listen to you. But that's on you.
And that is true. I actually am a founding board member for an adaptive golfers group. And so one of my friends is the one-handed lady golfer. That's her personal brand, and she travels around the world. And we've helped folks. One couple, we did a launch down here in Myrtle Beach, and the husband called up and participated, joined his wife, signed his wife up. And she showed up. She had some kind of a health issue, had a shoulder surgery, and had locked arm. It wasn't able to move the way she had wanted. She used to play golf. That was what they did together. And now, so visibly, you might not think of her as handicapped, disabled, all those words we used to say. Different. She didn't appear to be different to the naked eye. So if I had one leg, you'd probably help me and open the door. But if I don't visibly have something different, you might not assume anything's ever going on, right? ADD, neurodiversity, all the things. And so she found joy and was able to have someone who was able to acknowledge her difference, give her a way to accommodate for that, to compensate for it, to learn a new way of learning. And she did. And she hit the ball and it went up in the air and she cried. We cried. The husband cried. Everybody was just snot crying and hugging. There are ways to find your joy, to find your moment, but it does start with being the authentic you, with being able to, again, clarity on what you want, being able to find confidence to speak up for yourself and for others, communication. Connecting was the next one. I'm going to bring it back around. We talked about the 5 cornerstones, connecting and reconnecting. Sarah is a friend from years ago. I love her. And the fact that she showed up today is a beautiful thing because we'll have a conversation offline. Your people are gathering other people and gaining other experiences along the journey. And so coming back together is a really fun thing to do. So I encourage you to reach out, not just to people to say, what did you have for dinner last night? But how about someone you haven't seen in a year or 2 years and say, how's your family? How are you holding up? Is there anything I can do to help you? Or what about thanking someone? I messaged one of my first bosses after I got my master's degree, which I did at age 40. One of the first persons who hired me for a real job when I was in my 40s. And I thanked him because he used to say, do once, use many, kid. Do once, use many. And I used to look at him like he was strange. And now I realize, build systems and process. Don't reinvent the wheel every time. If you listen, there are often common threads through what people need, and you have a way to solve for them. Beate, you are the master at blueprints and process and systems and strategy. Do once, use many. When you listen with intention, people are only going through this once. You've done it 1,000 times. So you can see around corners, they might not even know to ask the questions you already know they should be asking, and you have the answers to. So that is a really important part of connecting, reconnecting. Put a recommendation. If somebody's here and you like what we're saying, put a recommendation on LinkedIn. Reach out to people in your team. Put a recommendation on LinkedIn. It's a great place to be visible and to connect and reconnect. So that's the fourth. And the fifth is celebrating. Don't just wait for the big giant win, because sometimes it's exhausting along the way. People need what we call stepping stones. Honor the small wins, not just the milestones at the end. This is important. We're working with major organizations all over the world and bringing recognition programs, helping them with their employee resource groups and affinity programs. People are working hard in their job and volunteering to stand up, whether it's for the LGBTQ community or for single parents, ERG, or for Asian Americans, all different kinds of topics, all different kinds of needs, and spending time. And so we're working on ways to help them establish credibility for what they do, to get a voice and a seat at the table so companies take action, and to give them recognition, because those transferable skills are worth their weight in gold. So how do we help you as a volunteer in your community or in your company or scouts or wherever it is? How do you leverage that as an important transferable skill? Because here's what happens, right, Beate? Nobody had in January 2020, do you know anybody that had pandemic leader on their resume?
No, not really. Or crisis specialist, or resilience was even much of a term that we had thought about.
So what are you seeing change from now till then? What are some of those moments, those transformational learnings that you're helping people with?
I think that what I'm really seeing change is that the responsibility to show up is a lot more on ourselves as an individual than it's ever been before. I think that I call this almost like an excuse eradicator. And you know, before we could say, well, somebody somewhere has got to see that I have a particular skill and then recognize that. And without the proximity, that's very difficult to do. So the spotlight on your own abilities, and to just stay with that term, really is on you now. And what I'm finding, and this goes back, and James made another comment that he bridged the gap, but only can explain so much detail. What I think is really critical to understand, and what I see is changing, is that people recognize that it's not what I'm intending, it's how it's perceived. So, and that's a huge differentiation factor. So I can talk about how I see myself and how I intend to show up 24/7. And then I can get mad at people for not seeing that. But if I consistently have the same issue, that I'm not being recognized, that I'm not being seen, then I have to change this within myself. That's what I'm seeing, is that people are tired now of waiting for when that day comes, that when someone sees that. But they're recognizing, and this is where you come on with your 90-day leaps and your, because in 90 days you can make such an impact. And I've seen you do this, where people really suddenly from this, wallflower become someone who actually can speak up clearly. And we are not trained to do that by our original programming, by our parents. We're told to be humble, to let the work speak for itself. That doesn't work. And so you are overcoming now all that old stuff that hasn't worked for years, and now it's glaring you in the face, where it says you need to step up for yourself, show up for yourself. What is it that you want? And then I put that question out to you, Pat, in all the work that you do, working with helping people to love their job and their job to love them back. How many people do you encounter that are able to tell you what they want?
They don't. And that's exactly it. So here's some jaw-dropping facts. We're talking, again, Beate Chelette, the growth architect, and myself, Pat Roque, leadership and career transformation strategist. 1 in 4 people in the U.S., ready, are thinking of quitting their job. Gallup used to say 70% were disengaged at work before the pandemic. Before the pandemic. It's only worse now. 42%, almost half of people surveyed said if their current company does not offer some kind of flexibility or virtual work for the long term, they will move to a company that does. Right? A record high, 48% of small businesses have job openings. I have a friend who is the head of HR for a very large Big Four type firm. I'll just say that. And
let me guess, she has a 4 to 5 digit number of hiring.
2,200 open roles.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Thousands of jobs at a great company with great benefits, global, unbelievable. Yes. Even the best companies on the planet are having a hard time hiring, or they're even worse, their employees are burned out over workplace culture. Right. Broken promises from employers. Is that you as an individual? Let us know. Is that you as a leader trying to figure out how to solve it? There's a thing called the Great Resignation. They're saying expect rage quitting, or people saying, remember that old song, Beate, take this job and shove it? I ain't working here no more. That's the mantra, because people have had a chance to kind of step back and realize what matters to them and their family now.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
And I saw the number yesterday. They say that 78% of all organizations are expected to be affected by the Great Resignation.
8 and 10.
That's your 80-20 rule right there. That means the majority of everyone out there is going to be affected by this. So, Pat, question for you. So
Yes,
if someone's listening and they're now part of an organization, and they go and they say, yeah, but how do I improve retention? How do I improve engagement? How do I make this a better place to work? Where should they start?
They should start by calling us, first of all, because, well, no, but what we'll do. So here's what happens. The process, always a conversation, a strategic conversation. You need to know where you're at and what's wrong, because often what you and I hear, what they think is the problem is often the Band-Aid. It's the symptom of a much bigger underlying problem. That is so common, happens all the time. Or we hear people, the bosses have a very different perspective because employees are leaving because of the boss. So the boss isn't going to say, I'm an ass, this isn't working for us. They don't accept the blame. They're going to blame every other piece of minutia. So first, having a conversation about your end game, your strategy, and your goals. We typically will then do assessments, whether we need to do personality or strength or interviews with folks, because we need to get to the root cause of what's going on. We come back and give them a debrief, a download, so that they have a clear understanding of what the pain or opportunity really truly is, with some ideas on how to implement. And then we can put together and have turnkey 90-day leaps programs where they can take one major problem off their plate, whether it's a recruitment challenge, whether it's an engagement challenge, maybe it's the retention. It's all three. Retention seems to be one of the big bleeding areas because it's super expensive to keep great people. It's more expensive to have to beg people to stay. There's a stat about how 9 out of 10 women only get a big raise when they walk in with their resignation. The counteroffer is their moment. Isn't that sad?
Crazy. That's
don't
crazy.
make me have to go through all that to leave instead of you treating me well and compensating while I'm at it. So 90-minute leaps are talks and keynotes and little bite-sized chunks, and 90-day leaps are efficient, fast ways to tackle one problem. Give us a foot in the door. Let us do one thing. See how it goes. But easy ways to solve problems today.
And I like that idea because, I always compare it to, we need to take the plane, and we need to take the plane to 30,000 feet. And we need to look at the terrain, and we need to look at all the airports. And then oftentimes organizations get really overwhelmed because they say there's so much that we could address. Well, we're going to have to figure out what is your best airport to land first.
Right.
Where are you going to have the biggest bang for the buck?
Pick
Where
one.
are you going to get your first big wins? And that's really where sort of this combination that, we've been working on, Pat and myself, and which is why we're working together, because we've seen this happening, is to say it's so overwhelming right now that it's impossible, literally impossible for an organization to say, I have these 15 things, where do I start? So let us help you with figuring out where to even start, and then help you map out the strategy, the timeline, the path, the phases to go out there. And in departing, Pat, my final question to you is: so what can somebody do immediately? Where can they get more information about this from you? I hear you do executive roundtables. Should they join this, and how would they do
I
that?
do. Well, they're for invitation only. They're for decision makers, team leaders, people who actually have skin in the game in impacting the lives of other people. And so we're having private conversations, confidential conversations, where we are asking tough questions, sharing from the heart, sharing some pretty raw stories of career PTSD, of people who have been slighted, overlooked, discriminated against, women talking about the challenges of sandwich generation and juggling. So what's going on for them personally, what's going on in their organization, and then we do a debrief and go in privately with them one-on-one and help them tackle one problem with their team. And so that's the joy. It's rockonsuccess.com/ERT for Executive Roundtable. They can go there. I put it in the chat and apply to come to the next one for September. But that's why we've got our big clients going on vacation with a smile on their face, and they're unplugging. And we are carrying the ball and getting all of this homework and research and everything done. So when they come back from vacation, they've been super productive while they're tanning or playing casino, whatever they're doing, to not be in front of their computer or at their desk. We're not going to bother them. We're just going to keep on keeping on and lighten the load so that they can have their family time and we can really hit the ground running. So again, Beate Chelette, the growth architect, Pat Roque, career and leadership strategist. Beate, what's the best way for them to reach you? I did put the link for your Future of Leadership Diversify.world.
Yes, exactly. The best way is look me up on LinkedIn and just send me a direct message, Beate Chelette. And I think I'm the only one with that name. So I'm easy to find. And again, my specialty is to help you to figure out how you're going to get there. And then I'll bring people like Pat and other experts on our team on to help you with the execution so that we can be laser focused and precise in what we're trying to achieve. And that's it from me.
That's it. So again, this is Pat Roque, rockonsuccess.com/coffee. If you want to have virtual coffee, if you've got a question or need help with your individual career ladder, or something's bugging you about your team and it's just keeping you up at night, sleep tight, folks. We are here. We've got your back. Happy to help. Thank you, Beate. Love you. You're the best. Everybody, thanks. Have a great rest of your day. God bless. I'm going to be jumping onto LinkedIn Live Hello Monday with Jesse Hempel and Sarah Storm. So see you over there. This is Pat and Beate. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.